As the world quiets and the stars begin to shimmer in the velvet night, let us embark on a journey to a land where empires rose and fell like the tides of the desert, where poets wove dreams into words, and where the echoes of ancient glory still whisper in the winds. This is the story of Iran, a nation whose history stretches back millennia, a tapestry woven with threads of conquest, culture, and resilience. Picture yourself standing atop a sun-warmed hill, gazing out over the vast plains of the Iranian plateau, where the shadows of great kings and fearless warriors linger in the dust. From the dawn of civilization to the modern era, Iran's story is one of enduring spirit, a land that has cradled some of humanity's greatest achievements while weathering storms of change. Tonight, we will wander through the ancient cities of Persepolis and Susa, feel the weight of empires like the Achaemenids and Sassanids, and trace the delicate threads of Persian poetry and art that have captivated the world. This is not just a tale of dates and battles, but a deeply human story of triumph, loss, and reinvention. Let the gentle rhythm of this narration carry you, like a soft breeze across the Zagros Mountains, into a world where history feels alive, tangible, and deeply personal. Whether you're here to drift into sleep or to immerse yourself in the past, this story is crafted to wrap you in its warmth, to guide you through the ages with a sense of wonder and calm. So settle into your favorite cozy spot, let your eyes grow heavy, and allow your mind to wander through the sands of time. This is a story of Iran, a land that has shaped the course of history and left an indelible mark on the soul of the world. Hello, this is Sherry, and welcome to my channel. So let's begin. Imagine a time before empires, before the clash of swords or the rise of great cities, when the Iranian plateau was a vast canvas of rugged mountains, rolling plains, and shimmering salt deserts. The sun rises slowly over the Zagros Mountains, casting golden light across a land that hums with the quiet pulse of life. This is where our story begins, in the deep folds of prehistory, where the first peoples of Iran carved their existence from the earth itself. Long before the name Persia would echo through the ages, this land was home to wandering tribes, skilled hunters, and early farmers who learned to coax life from the arid soil. Their footsteps, faint as whispers, mark the beginning of a story that would one day shape the world. The Iranian plateau, stretching from the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf, was no gentle cradle. Its harsh beauty demanded resilience. Winters bit with icy fangs, summers scorched the earth, and yet between these extremes, life found a way. By 10,000 BCE, small communities dotted the landscape, their lives tethered to the rhythms of the seasons. In the fertile valleys of the Zagros, they tamed wild goats and sheep, sowed the first seeds of wheat and barley, and built simple homes of mud and stone. These were not mere survivors but innovators, their hands shaping the very foundations of civilization. Their world was one of flickering campfires, of songs sung under starlit skies, and of stories of the spirits that dwelled in the mountains and rivers, stories that gave meaning to their struggles. By 4000 BCE, one of these early peoples began to stand apart, the Elamites. In the southwest, near the banks of the Qajar River, they built a civilization that would become one of the oldest in human history. Picture the city of Susa, its mud brick walls rising like a mirage from the plain, its streets bustling with artisans, traders, and priests. The Elamites were masters of their craft, forging bronze tools that gleamed like captured sunlight, weaving textiles dyed in rich hues of saffron and indigo, and carving intricate seals that told stories of gods and kings. Their language, neither Semitic nor Indo-European, was a mystery even to their neighbors, its script etched into clay tablets that still puzzle scholars today. Susa was more than a city, it was a heartbeat. Its ziggurat, a stepped tower reaching toward the heavens, stood as a testament to Elamite devotion. They worshipped a pantheon of deities, Inshushinak, the protector of Susa, and Kiririsha, the great mother goddess, whose names were invoked in rituals that blended awe and reverence. The Elamites traded with distant lands, their caravans winding through mountain passes to reach the cities of Mesopotamia. From Sumer and Akkad, they brought ideas, goods, and ambitions, yet they remained fiercely their own. Their kings, draped in robes adorned with gold, ruled with a quiet authority, their palaces filled with the scent of cedar and myrrh. But life in Elam was not without shadow. The same rivers that nourished their fields could turn treacherous, flooding villages in a single night. Raiders from the mountains tested their defenses, and the growing power of Mesopotamia cast a long gaze eastward. The Elamites learned to fight as fiercely as they built, their archers and charioteers earning respect and fear. In one tale, carved into a rock relief, an Elamite king stands triumphant over his enemies, his foot resting on their bowed heads. Yet for every victory there was a cost, a city rebuilt, a generation lost, a prayer offered to the gods for peace. As the centuries passed, Elam grew in strength, its influence stretching across the plateau. By 2700 BCE, it was a rival to the great powers of Mesopotamia, its armies clashing with the kings of Ur and Babylon. The Elamites were not conquerors by nature, but they were unyielding when pressed. Their resilience was their true legacy, a spark that would burn through the ages. In the quiet of their temples, priests gazed at the stars, charting their movements and seeking wisdom in their patterns. In their workshops, artisans dreamed of beauty, crafting objects that would one day lie in museums, silent witnesses to a vanished world. Stand for a moment in the heart of Susa, close your eyes and listen. Can you hear it? The murmur of the marketplace, the laughter of children, the soft chant of a priest offering incense to the gods. This is the Iran of long ago, a land where the seeds of greatness were sown in the dust. The Elamites, with their dreams and their struggles, were but the first chapter in a story that would grow ever grander. Yet, even as Susa's walls gleamed under the sun, a new force was stirring in the east, a people who would unite the tribes, forge an empire, and carry the name of Iran to the ends of the earth. Who were they, and what destiny awaited them? Let the night carry us forward, to a time when the world would tremble at their name. The sun dips low over the Iranian plateau, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, as if the heavens themselves are bowing to the rise of a new power. The year is around 550 BCE, and the air hums with the promise of change. From the rugged hills of Persis, a land of shepherds and warriors, a man emerges whose name will echo through the ages. Cyrus, son of Cambyses, a king destined to forge the greatest empire the world has yet seen. This is the dawn of the Achaemenid Empire, a realm so vast it would stretch from the sands of Egypt to the banks of the Indus, a tapestry of peoples and cultures woven together under the banner of Persia. Picture yourself standing on the walls of Pasargadae, the wind carrying the scent of cedar and the distant clatter of hooves. This is a story of ambition, wisdom, and a vision that reshaped the ancient world. Cyrus was no ordinary king. Born in the rugged heartland of Persis, he was raised among a people who valued honor and courage, their lives shaped by the harsh beauty of the Zagros Mountains. The Persians were one of many tribes on the plateau, their neighbors, the Medes, Elamites, and others, bound by uneasy alliances and ancient rivalries. Yet Cyrus saw beyond the fractious present. His heart burned with a dream, to unite these scattered peoples into a single, unbreakable whole. By 559 BCE, he was king of the Persians, but his gaze was already fixed on the horizon. The Medes, a powerful kingdom to the north, were his first challenge. Under their king, Astyages, they ruled with an iron grip, but Cyrus was undaunted. With a blend of cunning diplomacy and battlefield brilliance, he rallied his warriors, their spears glinting like stars in the dawn light, and marched against the Medes. The Battle of Pasargadae, fought around 550 BCE, was a turning point. Imagine the scene, dust rising in clouds as Persian horsemen charge, their cries mingling with the clash of bronze. Cyrus, astride a white stallion, led his men with a calm that belied the chaos. The Medes, caught off guard by his audacity, faltered. By the battle's end, the Median capital of Ecbatana was his, and Astyages was a prisoner, not in chains, but treated with the respect of a fallen king. This was Cyrus's genius. He conquered not through cruelty, but through magnanimity. He spared his enemies, welcomed them into his fold, and built loyalty where others sowed fear. The Medes became allies, their warriors joining his growing army, and the foundation of the Achaemenid Empire was laid. From Ecbatana, Cyrus's ambitions soared. To the west lay Lydia, a kingdom rich in gold, ruled by the fabled king Croesus. The Lydians, confident in their wealth and their walls, underestimated the Persian king. In 546 BCE, Cyrus marched across the mountains, his army a disciplined tide of spears and shields. The Battle of Thymbra was a masterstroke. His cavalry outflanked the Lydians, and their capital, Sardis, fell. Croesus, spared and honored, became a guest at Cyrus's court. The Persian king's mercy was not weakness but strategy. He understood that a conquered people ruled with kindness were less likely to rebel. Lydia's wealth flowed into Persian coffers, and its roads became the arteries of a growing empire. But Cyrus's greatest triumph came in 539 BCE, when he turned his eyes to Babylon, the jewel of Mesopotamia. The city was a fortress, its walls towering, its gates impregnable, its people proud. Yet Cyrus, ever the tactician, diverted the Euphrates River, allowing his army to march through its dry bed into the heart of the city. Babylon fell without a siege, its people greeting Cyrus as a liberator rather than a conqueror. The famous Cyrus Cylinder, a clay document inscribed with his decrees, tells of his promise to respect the gods and traditions of those he ruled. Temples were restored, exiled peoples, like the Jews of Babylon, were allowed to return home, and the empire grew not just in size but in spirit. By the time of his death in 530 BCE, Cyrus had built an empire spanning 3 continents. Picture it, from the azure waters of the Aegean to the dusty plains of Central Asia, a realm connected by the royal road, a marvel of engineering that stretched over 2,500 kilometers. Messengers known as Puridazish galloped along its length, carrying orders from the king's court to the farthest satrapies. The empire was a mosaic of peoples: Persians, Medes, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, each allowed to keep their customs, their languages, their gods. At its heart stood Pasargadae, Cyrus's capital, where gardens bloomed with roses and fountains sang in the desert air. Here, the king walked among his people, not as a distant god but as a leader who listened. Cyrus's successors, like his son Cambyses II, would expand the empire further, conquering Egypt and pushing into the Nile Valley. But it was Cyrus who set the tone, who showed that an empire could be more than conquest. It could be a vision of unity. His tomb, a simple stone structure in Pasargadae, still stands, its modesty a testament to a man who needed no grand monument to prove his greatness. The Achaemenids were not just rulers. They were architects of a world where ideas flowed as freely as goods, where Persian art, with its intricate reliefs and golden griffins, inspired awe, and where the Zoroastrian faith, with its reverence for truth and light, began to shape the empire's soul. Yet even as the Achaemenid star burned bright, shadows loomed. Far to the west, a young conqueror was rising, his eyes fixed on the riches of Persia. The empire, vast and mighty, stood at its zenith, but could it withstand the storm that was coming? As the night deepens and the stars grow brighter, let us pause, wondering what fate awaits this golden realm. Will it endure, or will it crumble under the weight of ambition? The answer lies just beyond the horizon, waiting to unfold. The night is still, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and dust, as if the land itself holds its breath. It is the late 4th century BCE, and the Achaemenid Empire, that vast tapestry of peoples and cultures, stands at its zenith under Darius III. From the marble halls of Persepolis to the bustling markets of Babylon, the empire pulses with life, its roads alive with traders, its palaces gleaming with gold. Yet, far to the west, a storm is gathering. A young Macedonian king, his eyes blazing with ambition, dreams of a world under his command. His name is Alexander, and his coming will shake the foundations of Persia like an earthquake. Picture yourself standing on the cliffs of the Zagros, the wind whispering tales of glory and ruin. This is the story of the Achaemenid Empire's fall, a tale of brilliance, betrayal, and the bittersweet dance of cultures that followed. The Achaemenid Empire, at its height, was a marvel of order and diversity. Darius III, though not the visionary Cyrus had been, ruled over a realm that spanned 3 continents. Satraps governed distant provinces, their loyalty ensured by the royal road and the king's watchful spies, known as the eyes and ears of the king. In Persepolis, artisans carved reliefs of tribute-bearers from every corner of the empire, Lydians with gold, Indians with spices, Ethiopians with ivory, each figure a testament to Persia's reach. The empire's strength lay in its unity, its ability to weave countless peoples into a single story. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Satraps grew restless, their ambitions stirring, and the vastness of the empire made it slow to respond to threats. The Persians, confident in their might, could not yet see the shadow creeping from the west. Alexander of Macedon was no ordinary foe. Barely 20, when he ascended the throne in 336 BCE, he was a whirlwind of intellect and audacity, trained by Aristotle and hardened by battle. His father, Philip II, had forged a Macedonian army unlike any other. Its phalanxes bristling with long sarissa spears, its cavalry swift and relentless. Alexander dreamed of surpassing his father, of conquering the world, and Persia, with its fabled wealth, was his prize. In 334 BCE, he crossed the Hellespont with an army of 40,000, a force small compared to Persia's vast legions but disciplined and fiercely loyal. The Persian satraps of Asia Minor met him at the Granicus River, their cavalry charging with the pride of an empire. But Alexander, leading from the front, his silver armor flashing, shattered their lines. The victory was a spark, igniting his path into the heart of Persia. The turning point came at Issus in 333 BCE. Imagine the scene: a narrow coastal plain, the sea on one side, mountains on the other, where Darius III faced Alexander with an army said to number in the hundreds of thousands. Persian chariots, their blades gleaming, thundered forward, but Alexander's phalanxes held firm, his cavalry outflanking the Persian wings. Darius, watching from his golden chariot, saw his forces crumble. In a moment of panic, he fled, leaving his family, his mother, wife, and children behind. Alexander, ever the strategist, treated them with honor, a gesture that won hearts even among his enemies. The victory at Issus was a wound to Persia's pride, but the empire was not yet broken. The final blow came at Gaugamela in 331 BCE, in the open plains of Mesopotamia. Darius, desperate to reclaim his honor, assembled a vast host, war elephants, scythed chariots, and warriors from every corner of the empire. The ground trembled under their march, the air thick with the dust of 1,000,000 footsteps. Alexander, with fewer than 50,000 men, studied the terrain, his mind a chessboard. He lured Darius's forces into overextending, then struck with his companion cavalry, driving a wedge through the Persian lines. Darius fled again, his empire unraveling. Babylon opened its gates, Susa surrendered, and Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the Achaemenids, fell to Alexander's torch. The flames that consumed its palaces were a symbol of the end, though whether Alexander meant to burn it or not remains a whisper of history's debate. By 330 BCE, Darius III was dead, betrayed by his own satrap Bessus, and the Achaemenid Empire was no more. Alexander, now styling himself the King of Kings, marched eastward, claiming Persia's lands as his own. But he was no mere destroyer. He adopted Persian customs, wore the robes of a Persian king, and married Roxana, a Sogdian princess, blending Greek and Persian blood. His vision was a world united, a fusion of East and West. In the cities he founded, like Alexandria in Aria, Greek settlers mingled with Persians, sharing ideas, art, and philosophies. Yet this blending was not without cost. The Persians, proud of their heritage, chafed under Macedonian rule, their satraps plotting rebellion even as Alexander pushed toward India. Alexander's death in 323 BCE, at the age of 32, left his empire fractured. His generals, the Diadochi, carved up his conquests, and Persia fell to Seleucus, founder of the Seleucid Empire. The Seleucids ruled from Syria, their grip on Iran uneven. Greek cities, with their theaters and gymnasiums, rose alongside Persian villages, creating a vibrant but uneasy cultural mosaic. The Persians, though no longer masters of their fate, preserved their traditions, their language, their Zoroastrian faith, their stories of Cyrus and Darius. In the markets of Ecbatana, Old men whispered of a time when Persia ruled the world, their words carrying a spark of defiance. The Seleucid era was one of flux, a bridge between Persia's past and its future. Greek astronomers studied the stars alongside Persian priests, and Hellenistic art, with its flowing lines, merged with Persian motifs of lions and lotuses. Yet, the people of Iran were not content to be ruled by outsiders. In the east, among the steppes and mountains, a new power was stirring, a people of horsemen, fierce and free, who would rise to reclaim their land. Who were these warriors, and how would they reshape Iran's destiny? As the stars wheel overhead, let us drift forward, into a time when the hoofbeats of the Parthians would thunder across the plains, heralding a new chapter in this ancient land's saga. The moon hangs low over the endless steppes of northeastern Iran, its silver light glinting off the curved bows of horsemen riding swift as shadows. The year is around 247 BCE, and the land, once the heart of the Achaemenid Empire, now hums with a restless energy. The Seleucids, heirs to Alexander's fragmented conquests, rule from distant Syria, their grip on the Iranian plateau slipping like sand through their fingers. In the east, a new people rise, their hoofbeats a drumroll of defiance. They are the Parthians, a nomadic tribe turned empire builders, whose skill with horse and bow will carve their name into history. Picture yourself atop a windswept hill, the scent of wild thyme in the air, as the Parthian riders gallop below, their silken banners snapping in the breeze. This is the story of an empire forged in motion, a tale of warriors who defied the might of Rome and rekindled Persia's pride. The Parthians, known to themselves as the Arsacids, were born of the steppes, a world of vast grasslands where survival demanded speed and cunning. Descended from the Parni, a Scythian tribe, they were masters of the saddle, their lives woven with the rhythms of migration and the bond between man and horse. By the 3rd century BCE, they had settled in the region of Parthia, a land of fertile valleys and rugged hills near the Caspian Sea. Their leader, Arsaces I, was no mere chieftain, but a visionary who saw opportunity in the Seleucid Empire's weakness. The Seleucids, distracted by wars in the west and rebellions in their provinces, had left their eastern satrapies vulnerable. In 247 BCE, Arsaces seized the moment, declaring himself king and founding a dynasty that would endure for nearly 5 centuries. Imagine the early Parthian camps, felt tents strung across the plains, fires crackling under starlit skies, and warriors sharpening their arrows while singers recounted tales of their nomadic ancestors. The Parthians were not city dwellers like the Achaemenids, but their mobility was their strength. Their cavalry, armed with composite bows, could strike and vanish like a desert storm. The Parthian shot, firing arrows backward while retreating on horseback, became a legend, a tactic that baffled their enemies. Arsaces, with his small but fierce band, began raiding Seleucid outposts, each victory swelling his ranks with tribesmen eager for glory. By 238 BCE, he had captured the city of Hecatompylos, making it his capital, a bold statement that the Parthians were here to stay. The Seleucids, under Antiochus III, struck back in 209 BCE, their heavy infantry and war elephants marching east to crush the upstart king. The Parthians, outnumbered, melted into the hills, harassing the Seleucid supply lines with lightning raids. Antiochus claimed victory, but it was hollow. The Parthians remained unbroken, their spirit as untamed as the steppes. Over the decades, the Arsacid kings, Arsaces II, Phraates I, Mithridates I, expanded their realm, their horsemen sweeping across the Iranian plateau. By 141 BCE, Mithridates I had seized the Seleucid capital of Seleucia on the Tigris, a triumph that echoed Cyrus's conquests. The Parthian Empire now stretched from Mesopotamia to the borders of Bactria, a power to rival the fading Seleucids. The Parthians' true test came against a new adversary, Rome, the rising giant of the West. By the 1st century BCE, Roman legions, with their iron discipline and siege engines, were pushing east, hungry for the wealth of Asia. In 53 BCE, at the Battle of Carrhae, the Parthian general Shurna faced the Roman triumvir Crassus. Picture the sun-scorched plains of Mesopotamia, where 10,000 Parthian horsemen, clad in shimmering scale armor, encircled 40,000 Romans. Shurna's cataphracts, heavy cavalry with lances, charged, while horse archers rained arrows like a deadly hail. The Romans, trapped and exhausted, were slaughtered. Crassus was killed, and his golden eagle standards were carried to the Parthian court as trophies. Carry was a humiliation for Rome and a testament to Parthian prowess, proving that the warriors of the East could humble even the mightiest empire. Yet the Parthians were more than warriors. Their empire was a crossroads of cultures, linking the Mediterranean with the Silk Road. In cities like Ctesiphon, their winter capital, Greek merchants bartered with Sogdian traders, while Persian scribes recorded taxes in Aramaic. The Parthians adopted Achaemenid traditions, styling their kings as King of Kings. Yet they remained true to their nomadic roots, their courts often moving with the seasons. Their art, with its vivid reliefs of horsemen and banquets, blended Persian grandeur with the vitality of the steppes. Zoroastrianism flourished, its fire temples glowing in the night, though the Parthians tolerated other faiths, from Buddhism to Judaism, fostering a vibrant mosaic of beliefs. Life under the Parthians was not without hardship. The empire's decentralized structure, with powerful noble families ruling vast estates, made it prone to infighting. Kings like Frot's IV faced rebellions from within and invasions from without, their thrones as precarious as a rider on a wild stallion. Rome, stung by Carey, returned under generals like Mark Antony, only to be repelled by Parthian guile. The two empires, locked in a tense stalemate, traded blows across the Euphrates, their border a line of blood and ambition. Meanwhile, in the east, nomadic tribes like the Saka pressed the Parthian frontiers, testing their resolve. By the 2nd century CE, the Parthian Empire was a paradox. Mighty yet fragile, a realm of warriors who could defeat Rome but struggled to hold their own nobles in check. In Ctesiphone's palaces, kings feasted on venison and pomegranates, their crowns heavy with jewels, while poets sang of heroes like Rostam, whose legends would live on in Persian epics. The Parthians had restored Iran's pride, proving that the spirit of Cyrus still burned in the east. But as the centuries turned, a new dynasty was stirring in the south, one that would eclipse the Arsacids and usher in a golden age of Persian glory. Who were these new rulers, and what would their rise mean for Iran? As the night wraps us in its quiet embrace, let us ride forward, toward a time when the Sassanids would light a fire that would blaze across the world. The stars burn bright above the Iranian plateau, their light casting a soft glow over the plains where the Tigris and Euphrates murmur their ancient secrets. It is the year 224 CE, and the Parthian Empire, once a beacon of defiance, has grown weary, its kings weakened by internal strife and the ceaseless pressure of Rome. In the south, in the province of Persis, a new fire kindles. A warrior priest named Ardashir, descended from a line of local rulers, raises his banner, his eyes alight with a vision of Persia reborn. This is the dawn of the Sassanid Empire, a realm that will restore Iran's grandeur, weaving a tapestry of art, faith, and power that will dazzle the world. Picture yourself standing before the towering rock reliefs of Naqsh-e Rostam, where kings are carved in stone, their gazes eternal. This is the story of a renaissance, a time when Persia's soul burned brighter than ever, yet faced shadows that would test its strength. Ardashir I was no mere usurper. Born in the heartland of the ancient Achaemenids, he was steeped in the legends of Cyrus and Darius, his blood tied to the priests of Anahita, the goddess of waters and wisdom. The Parthians, with their nomadic roots, had ruled as a loose confederation. But Ardashir dreamed of a centralized empire, rooted in Persian tradition and the Zoroastrian faith. In 224 CE, at the Battle of Hormozgan, he faced the Parthian king Artabanus IV. Imagine the clash. Dust rising like a storm, Sassanid cavalry in scale armor charging with lances, their war cries echoing across the plain. Artabanus fell, and Ardashir crowned himself King of Kings in Ctesiphon, the Parthian capital, now the seat of a new dynasty. The Sassanids had begun, their rise a spark that would ignite a golden age. Ardashir's empire was built on order and ambition. He reformed the Parthian patchwork of noble fiefdoms into a structured state, with governors loyal to the crown and a bureaucracy that echoed the Achaemenids. The Zoroastrian priesthood, the Magi, became pillars of his rule, their fire temples glowing across the land, symbols of Asha, truth, and cosmic order. Yet Ardashir was also a warrior. He pushed west, reclaiming Mesopotamia from Rome and fortifying the borders with watchtowers and walls. His son, Shapur-I, carried the torch further, his reign a crescendo of Sassanid might. In 260 CE, at the Battle of Edessa, Shapur achieved the unthinkable. He captured the Roman Emperor Valerian, a moment immortalized in rock reliefs where the Roman kneels before the Persian king. The image sent shockwaves through Rome, proof that Persia was no mere eastern kingdom, but a rival to rival the eagle's might. The Sassanid Empire was more than a military power. It was a cultural furnace. Picture the city of Gundashapur, a jewel in the southwest, where scholars from Greece, India, and Persia gathered, their debates filling the air with ideas. Here, a great academy flourished, blending Hellenistic philosophy with Persian wisdom and Indian mathematics. Physicians studied the body's mysteries, astronomers mapped the stars, and translators preserved texts that would later spark Europe's Renaissance. Sassanid art was a marvel, silk tapestries woven with scenes of lion hunts, silver plates gleaming with images of kings and gods, and palace walls adorned with stucco reliefs that seemed to dance in the torchlight. Music filled the courts, with lutes and harps accompanying poets who sang of love and valor, their verses laying the seeds for Persia's literary tradition. Zoroastrianism, under the Sassanids, reached its zenith. The Avesta, its sacred texts, was compiled, and fire temples became centers of community and ritual. The faith's dualism, light versus darkness, truth versus falsehood, shaped the empire's ethos, urging its people to strive for righteousness. Yet the Sassanids were pragmatic, tolerating Christians, Jews, and Buddhists within their borders, though tensions sometimes flared. Mani, the prophet of Manichaeism, preached a blend of Zoroastrian, Christian, and Buddhist ideas, winning followers until his teachings were deemed a threat, and he was executed under Bar-Mi. This act, though rare, hinted at the challenges of balancing faith and power in a diverse realm. The Sassanid economy thrived on the Silk Road, with caravans carrying spices, gems, and textiles from China to Rome. Cities like Nishapur and Rai bustled with merchants, their bazaars a riot of colors and tongues. The empire's coinage, stamped with the king's profile and a fire altar, was a symbol of stability, accepted from Antioch to Samarkand. Yet prosperity came at a cost. The Sassanids' wars with Rome, later the Byzantine Empire, drained their treasuries. Shapur-I, known as the Great, fought a grueling campaign in the 4th century, sacking Roman cities but facing counterattacks that left both empires battered. The borderlands became a scarred chessboard, with fortresses changing hands and peasants caught in the crossfire. Life under the Sassanids was a blend of grandeur and hardship. In the palaces, kings dined on peacock and pomegranates, their crowns heavy with pearls, while peasants toiled in the fields, their lives tied to the irrigation canals that turned deserts into gardens. The nobility, clad in silk and armor, hunted in royal parks, their falcons soaring above, but they also served as the empire's backbone, leading armies and governing provinces. Women, though bound by tradition, could wield influence. Queen Boran, who briefly ruled in the 7th century, was a rare but shining example. The empire's diversity was its strength, but also its challenge, as local loyalties sometimes strained against the king's authority. By the 6th century, under Khosrow-I, known as Anushirvan or Immortal Soul, the Sassanids reached their peak. Khosrow reformed taxes, strengthened the army, and patronized learning, earning a reputation as a just ruler. His court was a magnet for philosophers fleeing the Byzantine closure of Athens' schools. Yet even Khosrow's brilliance could not halt the tides of change. The empire's wars with Byzantium grew ever costlier, and internal unrest simmered. As the 7th century dawned, a new force was rising in the south, a faith born in the deserts of Arabia, carried by warriors whose zeal would shake the world. What would this mean for the Sassanids, whose fire temples had burned for centuries. As the night deepens, let us pause, the stars above whispering of a storm that will reshape Iran's destiny forever. The desert wind sighs across the Iranian plateau, carrying the scent of dust and distant rain, as if mourning the fading glory of an ancient empire. It is the early 7th century CE, and the Sassanid Empire, once a beacon of Persian splendor, stands weakened, its coffers drained by decades of war with Byzantium and its court riddled with intrigue. In the south, beyond the sands of Arabia, a new force stirs, a faith born in the heart of a merchant named Mohammed, whose words ignite a fire of zeal and unity among scattered tribes. This is the dawn of Islam, and its warriors, swift as the wind, will soon sweep across the borders of Iran, forever altering its destiny. Picture yourself atop a crumbling Sassanid watchtower, the horizon shimmering with the approach of hoofbeats. This is the story of the Islamic conquest, a tale of upheaval, adaptation, and the rebirth of a nation under a new sky. The Sassanids, under King Yazdijerd III, were ill-prepared for the storm. Years of conflict with the Byzantine Empire had left their armies exhausted, their fortresses neglected, and their people weary. Yazdijerd, crowned as a boy in 632 CE, ruled a fractured realm where nobles vied for power and the once mighty bureaucracy faltered. Meanwhile, in Arabia, the Prophet Muhammad's death in 632 CE had not dimmed the fervor of his followers. United under the first caliphs, Abu Bakr and Umar, the Muslim Arabs transformed from desert raiders into a disciplined force, driven by faith and a vision of a world under one God. Their armies, small but agile, moved with a speed that baffled their foes, their camel-mounted warriors and archers striking like lightning. The first clash came in 636 CE at the Battle of Qadisiyah, a plain near the Euphrates, where the Sassanid general Rostam Farrukhzad faced the Muslim commander Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Imagine the scene. The Sassanid host, resplendent with war elephants and heavy cavalry, their banners of silk fluttering in the breeze, arrayed against a leaner Arab force, their faces alight with conviction. For 4 days the battle raged, the ground churned to mud by blood and hooves. Rostam's elephants, meant to terrify, were undone by Arab archers who targeted their eyes, and the Sassanid lines buckled under relentless assaults. Rostam fell, his body lost in the chaos, and the Persian army shattered. Qadisiyah was a wound from which the Sassanids would never recover, its loss opening the road to their heartland. By 637 CE, the Muslim armies marched on Ctesiphon, the Sassanid capital, its palaces gleaming like a mirage. The city, already weakened, fell with little resistance. Its treasures, golden vessels, jeweled carpets, even the sacred fire of the Zoroastrian kings, carted away as spoils. Yazdijerd III fled east, a king without a throne, his court trailing him like ghosts. The Muslims pressed on, their victories piling like stones. The Battle of Nahevand in 642 CE, known as the Victory of Victories, crushed the last organized Sassanid resistance. City after city, Ray, Isfahan, Persepolis, opened their gates, some out of fear, others weary of war and swayed by promises of fair rule. By 651 CE, Yazdijerd was betrayed and killed in Merv, his death marking the end of the Sassanid dynasty. The empire that had stood for 4 centuries was no more. Yet the conquest was not merely a tale of destruction. The Muslim Arabs, though fierce in battle, were pragmatic rulers. They did not seek to erase Persian culture, but to govern a vast new empire. Many Sassanid nobles were allowed to keep their lands, provided they paid the jizya, a tax on non-Muslims. Zoroastrians, recognized as people of the book, were granted protection. Their fire temples spared though diminished in influence. The Arabic language and Islamic faith spread, but slowly, as Persians clung to their traditions. In the markets of Nishapur, old men still spoke Middle Persian, their prayers offered to Ahura Mazda, while their children learned the Quran's verses. This was a time of uneasy blending, where the past and present coexisted like shadows cast by the same flame. The Umayyad Caliphate, which rose in 661 CE, ruled Iran from Damascus, appointing Arab governors to oversee its provinces. These governors, often distant and heavy-handed, sparked resentment among Persians, who felt sidelined in their own land. Yet Persia's spirit was unbroken. In the quiet of their homes, scribes preserved the Shahnameh's tales of Rostam and Sohrab, while artisans crafted tiles with lotus motifs, their designs whispering of Sassanid glory. The Persian bureaucracy, with its meticulous record-keeping, was adopted by the conquerors, ensuring that the machinery of empire endured. Even in faith, Persians began to shape Islam, their scholars interpreting its laws with the rigor of Zoroastrian priests, laying the seeds for a distinctly Iranian Islam. Life under early Islamic rule was a tapestry of continuity and change. In the countryside, peasants tilled the same fields, their lives little altered save for new taxes. In cities like Kerman, mosques rose beside fire temples, their minarets echoing the ziggurats of old. Trade flourished, with Persian merchants carrying silk and saffron to Baghdad and beyond, their caravans a lifeline of the caliphate. Yet tensions simmered. The Umayyads' preference for Arab elites alienated Persians, who, with their ancient heritage, saw themselves as equals, not subjects. This discontent fueled revolts, like that of the Persian general Abu Muslim in 747 CE, whose rebellion helped topple the Umayyads and usher in the Abbasid Caliphate. The Islamic conquest was a turning point, a moment when Iran's ancient roots were shaken but not severed. The Persians, with their resilience and ingenuity, began to weave their identity into the fabric of Islam, setting the stage for a golden age. In the libraries of Baghdad, Persian scholars would soon pen works that lit the world, their quills dipped in the ink of a culture that refused to fade. But what would this new era bring, and how would Iran's voice rise amidst the chorus of a vast Islamic empire? As the night wraps us in its velvet hush, let us drift forward, toward a time when Persia's brilliance would shine anew, its legacy a beacon in the darkness. The stars twinkle above the bustling streets of Baghdad, their light reflected in the Tigris River, where boats glide silently under the moon. It is the 8th century CE, and the Islamic world is ablaze with a renaissance of knowledge, art, and culture. The Abbasid Caliphate, having overthrown the Umayyads in 750 CE, has made Baghdad its heart, a city where the dreams of a vast empire converge. Here, in the shadow of minarets and the glow of oil lamps, Persians stand at the forefront, their intellect and creativity shaping a golden age that will echo through the centuries. Picture yourself wandering through the House of Wisdom, its shelves heavy with scrolls, where scholars from every corner of the world speak in hushed tones. This is the story of Iran's rebirth within the Islamic world, a time when its people wove their ancient heritage into a new tapestry, illuminating the globe with their genius. The Abbasids, unlike their Umayyad predecessors, embraced Persia's legacy. Their rise was fueled by Persian support, particularly from figures like Abu Muslim, whose rebellion had toppled the old order. In gratitude, the Abbasids moved their capital from Damascus to Baghdad, a city founded in 762 CE near the ruins of Ctesiphon, the old Sassanid capital. This was no coincidence. The Persians brought their administrative prowess, their love of learning, and their artistic traditions to the new caliphate. The Barmakids, a Persian family of Buddhist descent turned Muslim, became viziers to the caliphs, their influence shaping the empire's policies. Under their guidance, the Abbasids adopted Sassanid systems of taxation and governance, blending them with Islamic principles to create a state as efficient as it was ambitious. Baghdad became a beacon of knowledge, and Persians were its brightest stars. The House of Wisdom, a grand library and academy, was a monument to curiosity. Here, Persian scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, whose name would give us the word algorithm, revolutionized mathematics. His treatises on algebra and the decimal system, inspired by Indian numerals, transformed how the world calculated. Imagine the quiet scratch of quills as he worked, his calculations unlocking mysteries that would guide astronomers and engineers for centuries. Another Persian, Al-Razi, known as Rhazes in the West, penned medical texts that became the backbone of medieval medicine. his observations on smallpox and measles grounded in meticulous study. In the lamplit halls, these scholars debated with Greeks, Indians, and Arabs, their ideas flowing like the rivers that nourished the city. Persian poets, too, began to weave their magic. The Arabic language, now the lingua franca, was shaped by Persian hands into verses of breathtaking beauty. Rudaki, born in what is now Tajikistan, is often called the father of Persian poetry. His lines, soft as a desert breeze, sang of love, nature, and the fleeting joys of life. Picture a courtyard in Samarkand, where listeners gathered under pomegranate trees, their hearts stirred by Rudaki's words. The world is but a dream, and we are travelers passing through. His poetry, written in the new Persian script, revived the language of the Sassanids, blending it with Arabic to create a literary tradition that would inspire Rumi and Hafez. These verses were not just art, but a quiet act of defiance, a way for Persians to reclaim their voice in a world reshaped by conquest. Art and architecture flourished, bearing the unmistakable stamp of Persia. In the Great Mosque of Samarra, built in 851 CE, the spiraling minaret echoed the ziggurats of ancient Elam, its bricks glazed with Persian blues and golds. Artisans crafted intricate tiles, their patterns of vines and stars a nod to Sassanid designs, now adorning mosques and palaces. In the markets of Nishapur, potters shaped ceramics that shimmered like the sea, their turquoise and cobalt hues a legacy of Persian craft. Manuscripts, illuminated with delicate miniatures, told stories of kings and heroes, their colors glowing like jewels. These works were not mere decoration, but a bridge between past and present, a way for Persians to honor their heritage while embracing their new faith. The Abbasid court was a stage for Persian culture. Caliphs like Harun al-Rashid, immortalized in the 1001 Nights, surrounded themselves with Persian advisors, musicians, and storytellers. The tales of Scheherazade, though set in an Arab frame, were woven with Persian motifs, jinns, flying carpets, and heroic quests that echoed the Shahnameh. Banquets in Baghdad rivaled those of Ctesiphon, with dishes of saffron rice and lamb perfumed with rosewater, served on silver trays engraved with lions and lotuses. Yet this splendor masked challenges. The empire's vastness made it hard to govern, and Persian provinces like Khorasan grew restless under distant rule. Rebellions flared, often led by Zoroastrian or Shi'a leaders who chafed at Abbasid authority. Zoroastrianism, though diminished, lingered in the shadows. In Yazd and Kerman, fire temples still burned, their priests guarding the sacred flames. Many Persians, especially in rural areas, clung to their ancient faith, though conversion to Islam grew steadily, drawn by social mobility or genuine belief. Shi'ism, with its emphasis on justice and martyrdom, found fertile ground among Persians, its roots tracing to Ali, revered as the prophet's heir. This shift laid the groundwork for Iran's later identity, but in the 9th century it was a quiet undercurrent, a whisper of change. The Golden Age was not without its price. The Abbasids' reliance on Persian talent bred envy among Arab elites, and by the 10th century, the caliphate began to fracture. Local Persian dynasties, like the Buyids and Samanids, rose in Iran, ruling as semi-independent emirs. These rulers patronized Persian culture, reviving the Shahnameh and building libraries, but their autonomy weakened the caliphate's unity. As the 11th century loomed, a new threat gathered on the horizon, nomadic tribes from the steppes, their eyes fixed on the riches of Iran. What would their arrival mean for this land of poets and scholars? As the night grows still, let us pause, the stars above hinting at a storm that will test Persia's resilience once more, urging us to listen on for the next chapter of this timeless saga. The night sky stretches vast over the Iranian plateau, its stars dimmed by the smoke of distant fires. It is the early 13th century, and the land of Persia, still vibrant with the echoes of its golden age, faces a tempest unlike any before. From the steppes of Central Asia, a horde thunders westward, led by a man whose name alone sends shivers through empires, Genghis Khan. The Mongols, with their swift horses and unyielding ferocity, are a force of nature, their arrows darkening the sky like a plague of locusts. Picture yourself standing on the crumbling walls of Bukhara, the wind carrying the distant rumble of hooves and the cries of a world about to change. This is the story of the Mongol invasions, a cataclysm that shattered cities and lives, yet from whose ashes Persia's resilience would rise, like a phoenix, to weave a new chapter in its ancient saga. By 1219 CE, the Islamic world, though fragmented, was a tapestry of flourishing cities. Persian dynasties like the Khwarezmian Empire held sway over Iran, their courts in Samarkand and Nishapur alive with poets and scholars. But the Khwarezmians, under Shah Muhammad II, made a fatal misstep. When Mongol envoys arrived seeking trade, they were executed, an insult Genghis Khan would not forgive. In 1220, the Mongol storm broke. Imagine the terror. Thousands of horsemen, their faces weathered by the steppe, sweeping across the border with bows drawn and swords gleaming. Bukhara fell first, its mosques and libraries reduced to ash, its people slaughtered or enslaved. Samarkand followed, its walls no match for Mongol siege engines. The chroniclers wrote of rivers running red, of skies blackened by smoke, as city after city, Ray, Hamadan, Merv, crumbled under the onslaught. The Mongols were relentless, their tactics honed by years of conquest. They used terror as a weapon, sparing those who surrendered but annihilating those who resisted. In Nishapur, after a Mongol prince was killed, the city was razed, its inhabitants massacred, their skulls piled into pyramids as a warning. By 1223, the Khwarezmian Empire was no more, its Shah dead in exile, its lands absorbed into the Mongol dominion. The destruction was staggering. Centuries of Persian culture, from manuscripts to mosques, lay in ruins. Yet the Mongols were not mere destroyers. Genghis Khan, a pragmatist beneath his ferocity, valued the skills of those he conquered. Persian artisans, engineers, and scribes were spared, sent to distant corners of his empire to build and govern. Their knowledge helped shape the Mongol world, from the roads of China to the palaces of Karakoram. After Genghis's death in 1227, his successors continued his legacy. By 1256, his grandson Hulagu led a second wave into Iran, targeting the Ismaili assassins, a secretive sect whose mountain fortresses, like Elamite, were thorns in the Mongol side. The assassins, masters of stealth, fell to Mongol siegecraft, their castles reduced to rubble. Hulagu then turned on Baghdad, the Abbasid capital. In 1258, the city was sacked, its caliph executed, and the House of Wisdom drowned in the Tigris, its books turning the river black with ink, or so the legends say. The loss was a wound to the Islamic world, but for Persia, it marked a turning point. Hulagu established the Ilkhanate, a Mongol state centered in Iran, with its capital at Maraghe, a city of observatories and learning. The Ilkhanate, ruling from 1256 to 1335, was a paradox, a Mongol regime with Persian roots. The early Ilkhans, like Hulagu, were Buddhists or shamanists, but they governed with Persian advisors, adopting the administrative systems of the Sassanids and Abbasids. Under rulers like Ghazan Khan, who converted to Islam in 1295, the Ilkhanate embraced Persian culture. Ghazan rebuilt cities, restored irrigation canals, and patronized scholars. The historian Rashid al-Din, a Persian, wrote the Jami al-Tawarik, a universal history that chronicled the Mongols and their world, its pages illuminated with miniatures that blended Persian and Chinese styles. In Tabriz, the Ilkhanate's new capital, markets buzzed with silk and spices, and mosques rose beside observatories, where astronomers like Nasir al-Din Tusi charted the stars, their calculations shaping the science of the age. Persian art flourished, reborn in the crucible of destruction. The Mongol invasion had disrupted the old order, but it also opened Iran to new influences. Chinese motifs, dragons, lotus flowers merged with Persian designs, creating ceramics and textiles that shimmered with innovation. The Shahnameh, Ferdowsi's epic of Persian kings, was copied in lavish manuscripts, its tales of Rostam keeping the flame of Persian identity alive. Poetry, too, thrived, with voices like Sadi weaving verses of love and wisdom that resonated across the Islamic world. In the quiet of a rebuilt madrasa, a poet might recite, The children of Adam are limbs of one body, a reminder of humanity's shared soul, even after such devastation. Life under the Ilkhanate was a delicate balance. Peasants toiled to rebuild shattered qanats, the underground canals that sustained Iran's fields, while merchants navigated the Silk Road, now under Mongol protection. The Pax Mongolica, as it was called, made trade safer, linking Iran to Europe and Asia. Yet the Mongols' heavy taxes and occasional brutality bred resentment. Zoroastrians, Christians, and Jews, though tolerated, lived as second-class citizens, while Shia communities grew in the shadows, their faith a quiet rebellion against Sunni dominance. The Ilkhans, though powerful, were not immune to strife. Succession disputes and rebellions weakened their rule, and by the 1330s, the Ilkhanate fractured, leaving Iran a patchwork of rival dynasties. As the Mongol grip loosened, Persia's spirit endured. In the bazaars of Shiraz, storytellers spun tales of heroes, their words keeping the past alive. The destruction had been immense, but so was the resilience. From the ruins, new powers would rise, drawing on Persia's ancient legacy to forge a path forward. What would this next era bring, as a dynasty rooted in faith and art prepared to unite Iran once more? As the night enfolds us, the stars above whisper of a time when the Safavids would paint Persia's future in colors of faith and glory, urging us to listen on for the next chapter of this unending tale. The night is soft and still, the air fragrant with the scent of rosewater drifting from a distant garden. It is the dawn of the 16th century, and Iran, scarred yet unbroken by centuries of conquest, stands on the cusp of a new era. The Mongol storms have faded, leaving a land of rival warlords and fragmented dreams. But in the northwest, a young warrior named Ismail rides forth, his heart ablaze with faith and ambition. He is the founder of the Safavid dynasty, a leader who will forge a nation from the ashes of the past, binding it with the threads of Shia Islam and Persian pride. Picture yourself standing in the turquoise-domed heart of Isfahan, its minarets piercing the twilight sky, as the call to prayer weaves through the streets. This is the story of the Safavids, a time when Iran was reborn, its culture blooming like a garden in spring, yet shadowed by the rivalries that would shape its modern soul. Ismail I was no ordinary conqueror. Born in 1487 in Ardabil, he was the heir to a Sufi order, the Safaviya, whose mystical teachings had evolved into a fervent Shia movement. By 1501, at just 14, Ismail declared himself Shah, claiming descent from Ali, the revered Shia imam. His followers, the Qizilbash, red-hatted warriors bound by loyalty and faith, swept across Iran like a crimson tide. Imagine the Battle of Chaldiran in 1514, where Ismail faced the Ottoman Empire, a Sunni powerhouse. The Ottoman cannons roared, their disciplined janissaries advancing, but the Qizilbash charged with fanatic zeal, their curved swords flashing. Though defeated, Ismail's vision endured, and by 1510, he had united Iran from the Euphrates to the Oxus, the first to do so since the Sassanids. In Tabriz, his capital, he proclaimed Twelver Shi'ism the state religion, a bold act that would define Iran's identity for centuries. The Safavids transformed Iran into a Shia stronghold, a move as political as it was spiritual. Zoroastrian fire temples and Sunni mosques were eclipsed by Shia shrines, their domes gleaming with tiles of lapis and gold. In Mashhad, the shrine of Imam Riza became a pilgrimage hub, its courtyards filled with the faithful. The Safavids patronized maddas, poets who sang of Ali's martyrdom, their voices stirring hearts in bazaars and villages. Yet this shift was not gentle. Sunnis faced persecution, and Zoroastrians, Jews, and Christians paid the jizya tax, their lives tolerated but constrained. The Safavids' faith was a unifier, but also a blade, cutting a line between us and them that deepened Iran's rift with its Sunni neighbors, the Ottomans and Uzbeks. Under Shah Abbas I, who ruled from 1588 to 1629, the Safavids reached their zenith. Abbas, known as the Great, was a master of statecraft and vision. He moved the capital to Isfahan, transforming it into a city of breathtaking beauty. Picture the Naqsh-e Jahan Square, its vast expanse framed by the turquoise dome of the Shah Mosque, the delicate arches of the chic Lotfala Mosque, and the Ali Kapu Palace, where Abbas held court. The city's bazaars buzzed with silk, spices, and stories, their vaulted ceilings echoing with the chatter of merchants from Venice to Samarkand. Abbas rebuilt the army, arming it with muskets and cannons, and reclaimed lands lost to the Ottomans, his victories celebrated with feasts where poets recited verses under lanternlit skies. Safavid culture was a renaissance of Persian art and thought. Miniature paintings, with their jewel-like colors, depicted lovers in gardens or heroes from the Shahnameh, their details so fine they seemed to breathe. Calligraphers crafted verses of Hafez and Rumi in flowing Nastaliq script, their words adorning books and tiles. Carpet weavers in Kashan and Tabriz wove masterpieces, their patterns of vines and stars a meditation in thread. In Isfahan's workshops, potters fired ceramics that shimmered like moonlight, while architects designed bridges like the Coc Paul, its 33 arches spanning the Zayandeh River like a stone poem. This was Persia at its most radiant, a culture that married faith with beauty, its legacy still alive in every curve of a mosque's dome. Abbas' reign was not without shadows. His paranoia led him to blind or kill his sons, weakening the dynasty's succession. The Kizilbash, once loyal, grew restive, their power curbed by Abbas' new slave army, the Ghulams, drawn from Georgian and Armenian converts. Trade, though thriving, was vulnerable to European powers like the Portuguese, whom Abbas expelled from Hormuz with English help, only to face new pressures from the Dutch. The Safavids' Shia identity, while unifying Iran, isolated it from Sunni neighbors, sparking wars that drained the treasury. Yet Abbas' reforms, tax systems, roads, and caravanserais made Iran a hub of the Silk Road, its wealth flowing like the rivers that fed its gardens. Life under the Safavids was a blend of splendor and struggle. In Isfahan's palaces, nobles dined on saffron rice and sherbet, their robes embroidered with gold, while peasants toiled in rice paddies, their lives tied to the land. Women, though veiled, could own property and patronize art, their influence felt in the shadows of the court. Coffee houses, a new import, became hubs of debate, where poets and philosophers sipped bitter brews and spun dreams. The Safavids' Shia rituals, like Ashura processions mourning Imam Hussein, wove communities together, their drums and chants a heartbeat of faith. By the 17th century, the Safavids began to wane. Weak shahs like Safi II squandered Abbas' legacy, their courts mired in decadence. The empire's borders shrank under Ottoman and Mongol pressure, and internal revolts flared. In 1722, Afghan tribes sacked Isfahan, ending Safavid rule in a blaze of chaos. Yet their legacy endured, etched in Iran's Shia soul and its cultural splendor. As the 18th century dawned, new rulers would rise, their eyes on a world of empires and revolutions. What would this mean for Iran, a land forged in faith and fire? As the stars fade into dawn, let us pause, the night's quiet urging us to listen on for the final chapter of this timeless tale. The dawn breaks gently over the Iranian plateau, its light touching the minarets of Isfahan and the snow-capped peaks of the Alborz, as if whispering of a new age. It is the late 18th century, and Iran, still reeling from the fall of the Safavids, stands at a crossroads. The land has endured centuries of glory and ruin, its soul shaped by poets, kings, and conquerors. Now, as empires clash and the world shifts toward modernity, Iran must navigate a path between its ancient heritage and the pressures of a changing globe. Picture yourself in the bustling bazaars of Tehran, where the scent of saffron mingles with the murmur of merchants and the distant chime of a mosque's bell. This is the story of Iran's journey through the Qajar and Pahlavi dynasties, the Islamic Revolution, and its emergence as a modern nation, a tale of resilience and reinvention that carries the weight of millennia. The Safavids' collapse in 1722 left Iran fractured, a patchwork of warring tribes and local khans. From this chaos rose the Qajar dynasty, founded by Agha Mohammad Khan in 1794. A ruthless leader, he united Iran through conquest, his sword carving a fragile realm from the ashes of Afghan and Zand rule. By 1796, he made Tehran his capital, a dusty town transformed into a seat of power. The Qajars, however, were no Safavids. Their rule was plagued by weak shahs and foreign meddling. Imagine the court of Fath Ali Shah, his beard long and jeweled, presiding over a palace of mirrors and tiles, yet struggling to hold a realm squeezed between two empires, Russia to the north and Britain to the south. The Qajars lost vast territories, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, to Russia in the Treaty of Turkmenchay in 1828, a humiliation that stung Persian pride. The 19th century was a time of uneasy awakening. The Qajars, eager to modernize, sent students to Europe, where they drank in ideas of reform and nationalism. Yet their efforts faltered. The Shahs, like Nasir al-Din, built lavish palaces like Golestan, its halls gleaming with chandeliers, but their reforms, telegraphs, railways, and a modern army were half-hearted, stymied by corruption and debt. European powers exploited Iran's weakness, securing trade concessions and oil rights. In 1908, British prospectors struck oil in Khuzestan, and the Anglo-Persian Oil Company was born, funneling Iran's black gold to the west. In the bazaars, merchants whispered of betrayal, their voices mingling with the clink of coins and the call of muezzins. The Qajars faced growing unrest. The constitutional revolution of 1905–1911 was a cry for change, led by merchants, clerics, and intellectuals. Picture the streets of Tehran, crowded with protesters demanding a parliament, their banners fluttering under a smoky sky. The Shah, Mozaffar al-Din, granted a constitution, but his successors undermined it, their rule teetering as tribal revolts and foreign intrigue grew. By 1925, the Qajars were ousted by Reza Khan, a Cossack officer with a vision of a modern Iran. Crowned Reza Shah Pahlavi, he sought to drag Iran into the 20th century. He built roads, schools, and factories, banned the veil, and ordered men to wear Western hats, his decrees enforced with an iron hand. Tehran grew into a modern city, its avenues lined with cinemas and cafes, but his reforms alienated clerics and tribes, their resentment simmering in the shadows. World War II brought new challenges. Iran's strategic oil and location made it a prize for Allied and Axis powers. In 1941, Britain and the Soviet Union invaded, forcing Reza Shah to abdicate in favor of his son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The young Shah, handsome and ambitious, ruled a nation caught in the Cold War's grip. The 1950s saw the rise of Mohammad Mossadegh, a nationalist prime minister who nationalized Iran's oil, defying Britain. In 1953, a CIA-backed coup ousted Mossadegh, restoring the Shah's power but leaving a scar of distrust. The Shah's White Revolution in the 1960s, land reforms, women's suffrage, and industrialization, aimed to modernize, but his lavish lifestyle and brutal secret police, Savak, fueled discontent. In the mosques, a cleric named Ruhollah Khomeini preached against the Shah, his words a spark in a tinderbox. The Islamic Revolution of 1979 was a tidal wave. Picture the streets of Tehran, millions marching, their chants of death to the Shah echoing through the night. Khomeini, exiled for years, returned as a hero, his stern face a symbol of defiance. In 1979, the Shah fled, and Iran became an Islamic Republic under Khomeini's vision of Velayat-e rule by Islamic jurists. The revolution reshaped Iran, its women veiled, its laws rooted in Shi'a doctrine. Yet it faced immediate trials. The Iran-Iraq War of 1980–1988, sparked by Saddam Hussein's invasion, cost countless lives, its battles scarring the borderlands. Iran's resilience held, its people united by faith and sacrifice, their cities lit by the glow of oil lamps during wartime blackouts. Modern Iran is a paradox, a nation where ancient poetry meets nuclear ambitions. Under leaders like Khomeini and his successors, it has balanced tradition with defiance, its Shia identity a shield against Western influence. Tehran, now a sprawling metropolis, hums with traffic and ideas, its universities training engineers and poets. The Shahnameh is still read, its tales of Rostam recited in coffeehouses, while filmmakers and artists push boundaries, their work a quiet rebellion. Sanctions and tensions with the West have tested Iran, Yet its people endure, their markets vibrant with saffron and pistachios, their mosques filled with prayer. Iran's story is one of endurance, a thread woven through millennia. From Elam's mud-brick cities to the Islamic Republic, it has faced conquest and chaos, yet its soul, its poetry, its art, its faith, remains unbroken. As you drift towards sleep, picture the Zagros Mountains, their peaks guarding a land that has shaped history's course. What lies ahead for Iran, a nation poised between past and future? The stars above hold no answers, but they urge us to dream, to carry this tale in our hearts, and to wonder what new chapters await in the dawn. As the night settles deeper, wrapping the world in its quiet embrace, we stand at the end of our journey through Iran's timeless saga. The stars above the Iranian plateau seem to pulse with the memories of a land that has seen empires rise like the sun and fall like autumn leaves. From the ancient mud-brick walls of Susa to the vibrant streets of modern Tehran, Iran's story is a tapestry woven with threads of resilience, beauty, and an unyielding spirit. Picture the windswept plains where Elamite kings once stood, the golden halls of Persepolis where Achaemenid rulers dreamed of eternity, and the turquoise domes of Isfahan where Safavid poets sang of love and faith. Each era, from the Parthian horsemen to the scholars of the Islamic Golden Age, from the Mongol storms to the fervor of the Islamic Revolution, has left its mark, like footprints in the desert sand, enduring through the ages. Iran is more than a nation. It is a living poem, its verses written in the courage of Cyrus, the wisdom of Al-Khwarizmi, and the defiance of Khomeini. Its people have faced conquest and chaos, yet they have always risen, their culture a flame that no storm could extinguish. The Shahname's tales still echo in coffeehouses, the scent of saffron still wafts through bazaars, and the call to prayer still weaves through the dawn. This is a land where the past is not a shadow but a companion, walking beside the present, whispering of dreams yet to come. As you listen, perhaps with eyes heavy and heart full, let Iran's story remind you of the power of endurance, of a people who turned hardship into art, division into unity, and loss into legacy. But our journey need not end here. If this tale of Iran has stirred your soul, let it be a spark to explore further. Dive into the verses of Hafez or Rumi, lose yourself in the intricate patterns of a Persian carpet, or wander the digital halls of history through books and films that bring this land to life. My channel is a haven for stories like these, where the past whispers softly, guiding you towards sleep or wonder. If you've enjoyed this journey, please like this video and share it with someone who dreams of distant lands. Your support keeps these stories alive, like a fire tended through the night. Subscribe to join our community of dreamers and historians, where every week we unravel new tales from the tapestry of time. Click the bell icon so you never miss a story, whether it's the saga of another ancient empire or the quiet beauty of a forgotten corner of the world. In the comments below, share your thoughts. What moved you about Iran's story? Which era spoke to your heart? Perhaps you have a tale from your own culture you'd love to hear told in this gentle, storytelling style. Let me know, and I'll weave it into our next journey. For those who crave more, join our Patreon community, where exclusive content, like extended stories, behind-the-scenes notes, and guided meditations inspired by history, awaits. Your support helps me craft these narratives with care, ensuring each one is a lullaby for the mind and soul. And if you're drifting towards sleep, let the echoes of Iran's past carry you into dreams, where kings and poets walk beside you under a starlit sky. Thank you for joining me on this journey. My name is Sherry, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, may your nights be filled with wonder, and may the tales of the past light your way. Good night and sweet dreams.